and welcome to Celtics postgame after a Heat Hawks game that I'm sure surprised many people. I think almost
big time, Bobby.
Almost everybody penned in the Heat to move on and play the Celtics in an East Finals matchup. That will not happen.
At least one of us is happy. One of us is ecstatic.
Who is that? Who would that be?
The one dancing over there.
I guess
the land is, guys. The land is next up.
Dominated the Heat. And I think finally affirmed what I said the third game of the season, that this Heat team was just weird and wasn't the same, and something's going on down there. They clearly, if this is how they were going to play against the Hawks, they weren't going to challenge the Celtics. And we'll debate how much the Hawks can challenge the Celtics tonight. But that'll be the first round opponent for Boston, 3:30 Saturday afternoon. Hawks coming back. They were just here on Sunday. We saw the bench crew. They actually played great in this game, Sherrod. And I thought they won this game for them. Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu and company. But man, did the Heat stink here. And that was the big story.
And that's the thing that makes this a hard one for me to kind of really process, because Atlanta got a lot of different contributions for guys off that bench. Saddiq Bey gave them 17. They got a dozen from Okongwu.
Celtics fans remember him.
Right. Lots of different guys. And that's cool, but Max Strus 1 for 5, Jimmy Butler 6 for 19, Gabe Vincent 2 for 6. I mean, there were a lot of bad offensive performances and an even worse work on the boards. I mean, Miami just looked like garbage out there for this game. Yeah. And the thing that I was most surprised about, of all the things that went wrong for Miami, was I never felt that they wanted this. There was never a point where I felt that they were trying to change the tide of the momentum in their favor. Jimmy Butler was as MIA as I've ever seen Jimmy Butler in a big game. He was as big a non-factor as I think Jimmy Butler has ever been in an elimination, or at least a game of this stature. And that was surprising. Watching him play, this was like 1, 2, 3 Cancun all game long for Jimmy Butler. And I'm not used to seeing that. And I think most people who saw this game are wondering, what's.
You think they want to avoid the Celtics?
What's that?
Think they want to avoid the Celtics?
Who?
Miami?
Hell no! You want to get to the damn playoffs. You're not even a playoff team yet.
You don't want to flirt with that type of danger.
Yeah, listen, when you reach in your
find yourself outside.
When you reach in your pocket and you got nothing but lint, you can't be talking about, I want to go to Roof Chris. No, you can't do that. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
If you don't have the cachet, you're a beggar. You're trying to get in wherever you can fit in. And so, no, I don't think they're trying to avoid the Celtics, because think about it. If in the next game that they'll play against the winner of the 9-10 game, if you play a team like Chicago, for example, they could beat you bad. Toronto can beat you bad. I mean, those are probably two of the better teams in that position that we've seen since we've gone with the play-in format, because either one of those teams can beat any of the top 4 seeds in terms of talent. They haven't been able to put it together this year, but no, Miami was not trying to avoid the Celtics in this one. They just got their asses kicked by the Hawks. And if they're not careful, they're gonna same thing is going to happen in their crib in that 9-10 winner.
Yeah, right, for sure. Momentum is everything, man.
What do you think of the Hawks, Josue?
What do I think of them? Hold on, we got to talk more about this Heat team, man, because this was terrible. But I'll get to them in a second. But first things first, man. The way Jimmy Butler was pretty much just not there. You could say the same thing about Bam Adebayo for about almost the entire first half. I mean, he went scoreless, missing bunnies. I mean, he's getting the
quarter and a half almost. He didn't score.
Guy clears out, and he's just missing layups, man. I mean, I get it. I mean, look, the Atlanta Hawks, they did their best in protecting the rim. Obviously, clean the glass in a big way, which is what they do. I mean, Clint Capella, that's his MO. But when you can't make just open layups in these contested takes at the rim, you just didn't have it. I just felt like he just didn't look like the team that wanted it more. Like pretty much what Sherrod just said about Jimmy Butler. I feel like that went throughout the entire team except for Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was playing as if, man, this is my last game.
This was 2017 Lowry.
Yes, exactly. 17 Lowry showed up. Desperation Lowry showed up, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that was all they really had, and that was that's what pretty much carried them, right? I mean, once they realized how bad they were getting their asses kicked, that woke them up. The end of the second quarter, right into the third quarter, all of a sudden it's a 6-point game. I'm like, man, here we go. This is the Miami Heat team that can turn things up a notch offensively. But then they just lost it. A lot of the open shots weren't falling down anymore. Jimmy Butler couldn't really get it going. Bam Adebayo, again, getting stopped at the rim, couldn't find his offense. And then it was like he checked out on that end of the floor. Whereas, you saw Atlanta Hawks team that was cleaning the glass, putting the effort for those extra possessions, a lot of extra possessions that turned into, second chance points. But also they were just executing in transition, just getting ahead
Wouldn't they
of
have
things.
20 offensive rebounds? Close to it?
At least. It felt like 200.
22.
Yeah.
That's startling.
It's insane, man. That's just effort right there. And I feel like you look at a team like the Miami Heat with their experience and what they've been through, man, and it was just like the guys that you need to step up big just didn't have it. Kyle Lowry, you got to give him his props. We haven't seen this version of him in a long time. By far the best we've seen all year. But they obviously needed more than that, and they didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm all for the Heat slander because I wasn't trying to hear that they were a Celtics threat. This team's just been a mess all year. There's a reason.
And look, the Hawks pulled this off, man. Let's face it. They didn't need a 30-piece from Trae Young, right? I mean, they did this one. I mean, the Celtics obviously are favored in this matchup. It's gonna be, one that I don't think will be a long series, but Murray. Trae Young gets hot. I mean, it can get impressive. I mean, I'm sure they'll be able to put on a show here. But what we saw tonight against the Heat, man, like you're not gonna see that type of energy from the Celtics, man. So I just don't think that.
So that is the one thing I worry about.
Just real quick, Celtics fans watching this and thinking like, man, maybe the Hawks are not quite, not against the Celtics team. This is more of the Miami Heat just not showing up, if you ask me.
So Amit, and I found it here on our FanDuel Partners website. Throw them up here real quick. Give them a little shout out, fanduel.com/Boston. If you want to go right now to their website, this is how good they are. Celtics Hawks already up there. Celtics minus 850 against the Hawks. Hawks come in at plus 590 for this series. So FanDuel says this one's going to be a blowout, and it's already moving according to Amit. That Celtics action strong. Let me see. I'm still seeing 850 for game one at least. I don't know if that's up yet, but series I'm seeing 850. Amit's talking game one. Celtics -8 for game one according to FanDuel. So head over there. You can bet on that. You can bet on the series. All the series that are getting underway up there now. Knicks, Cavs, Nets, 76ers. Somehow, actually, I think shorter odds than the Celtics one. Yeah. They think the Nets are more likely to compete with the Sixers than the Hawks are here with the Celtics. Suns, Clippers also available. Kings, Warriors. So head over there to fanduel.com/Boston. It's that time of year. NHL playoffs coming up. And game one of the Celtics series getting underway on Saturday. Here we go. My one concern going into this one, and Josue and I talked about this series, the Heat series, possible outcomes. I think we both agreed Boston would sweep this series. My only concern going into it, and I think the Celtics have a lot of advantages here that we'll get into, it's just that intangible thing with Boston. Are they going to show up? Are they going to take this series seriously? Are they going to play with this kind of energy and enthusiasm that the Hawks showed tonight? Or will they get caught like the Heat, slumping a little bit? That's the only thing I can think of, Sherrod.
I'm not worried about that. I mean, I'm just going to go. I expect a sweep. I expect them to sweep the Hawks. I mean, and that's not disrespecting the Hawks. It has everything to do with the fact that the Celtics are that much better than them. The Hawks played, I thought, a good game. They did a lot of things that they obviously were hoping to do. Trae Young, I thought, played within himself. But there are things that I saw in this game that if I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm thinking like Miami really missed some golden opportunities to do some things. For example, I didn't feel that they attacked Trae Young as much as they could have.
They attacked him once in the first quarter.
That's what I'm saying. Once, right. And to me, that's kind of like, playing Atlanta Hawks 101. What do? you go at Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
The way that Atlanta was able to really do some good things on the boards, they're not going to be able to have that kind of dominance against the Celtics. I think the Celtics have too many matchups that Atlanta doesn't really have an answer for. When Derek White is on the floor, for example, who's going to guard him? Who's going to guard Tatum? Who's going to guard Brown? One of those three is going to be a problem for you every single game because one of those three is going to be guarded by Trae Young.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing if you're the Boston Celtics about this particular matchup. There's nowhere that you can hide Trae Young. The lights are on. There's no corners you can scurry under and be out of sight. Hell no. You are there. You can't run. You can't hide. And if you're the Celtics, it's like you don't want to say this is the matchup that you want, but in your heart of hearts, you know damn well this is the matchup that you wanted.
And do your best to get it done as quickly as possible because you got bigger fish to fry, right? And look, that's just the way the Celtics have to approach it. You can't look at it any other way. You can't look at it as, oh well, you know, this is the Hawks and we might have dodged a bullet facing the Heat. No, you got to treat them like they're the Bucks, like they have the advantage against you. And you know, it'll be interesting to see how the Celtics do that because they have those mismatches, like you just pointed out, Sherrod. You know, the Atlanta Hawks have the ability to beat you on the glass. But I feel like the Celtics just have so much in their advantage in terms of their offense and what they can do. And of course, we're talking about their defense. If you limit this Hawks team, especially if their shots aren't falling and Murray can't get his offense going and Trae Young is out of it, you know, because of what he's been having to do on the other side of the floor, then that's a recipe for success. I mean, that should be enough for you to wrap this thing up, if not a sweep, in 5 games. And I'm hoping that's the case for the Celtics team because, like I said, man, this is obviously a team with championship aspirations, and it's not going to get easier at all after round 1. So hopefully that's the Celtics team we'll see.
And remember, rebounding doesn't become a factor if you're making shots. And against this Hawks team, you should be able to do that because you're going to have favorable matchups, plural, not singular, plural,
1 through 5, bro.
Matchups
1 through 5.
And even and think about it, when you go to your bench, okay, Malcolm, he's got the matchup. I'm pretty much anyone they put out there guarding him, you know, and Rob Williams, his ability to, you know, do what Rob does, he's going to help you. So Sam Hauser is knocking down shots like Sam Hauser back in like November, December. So, I mean, you start looking at the things that the Celtics have going on positively, it becomes very daunting to see a scenario where Atlanta can, you know, win a game, let alone win the damn series. And I'm usually kind of pessimistic about that. I'm usually want to give the not so great team at least one victory and a gentleman's sweep. But F the gentleman bullshit. You're better than them. You don't need to be a gentleman to these guys. They're not good enough. You should be able to sweep this team.
Yeah, Celtics scored at will in this one. Welcome in, John.
What are we doing? Previewing the Sixers?
Hawks.
Nah, not yet.
Yeah.
Don't overlook them, John. I said
that's what I'm
right before
about.
You got in here, the one thing.
Round 2 preview. I'm ready.
Zannis off the top rope, people.
John, the one thing you worry about in this series, Celtics showing up half asleep on Sunday.
I worry only about 2 things in this series, whether it was Miami or Atlanta. Celtics being bored and showing up.
I wasn't worried about that against Miami.
Kind of whatever. I don't know, but Miami is fun and like distracting and like lots of things, you know, and like, but it is interesting, isn't it? The only thing you can possibly worry about, like in this entire first round, which you're not supposed to, if you're a team with championship aspirations, you don't worry about first round opponents. Okay. So, but it is interesting that the 2 best coaches in the entire East playoff picture were in this game tonight, and you knew that the one thing you're a little anxious about to see how it works is Joe Mazzulla in his first ever playoffs, and no matter what, he was going to get a tough coaching matchup in round 1. So it is interesting because that's the one thing where it's not going to flip the series. The talent, you know, the Celtics are much better than both of these teams, but it's the one thing you're going to sit and think of, like, how's that gonna go? You know, and again, we'll get into
and we'll never know
like
now, John.
General playoff preview stuff, you know, later in the week before we get into the actual game. That's the only thing I think that you're gonna be moderately thinking about if you're the Celtics right now.
Yeah, I wanted to see how he would do in that type of matchup, right? That was part of it. That was, yeah, you could talk about the players, but the coaching matchup that's always kind of part of it, right? We're talking about Eric Spoelstra. So I wanted to see how he was going to respond to that matchup. And I guess we'll never know. But also, if it's hypothetically now, right? If they were to, let's say it's Celtics and Heat, right? And the Celtics clean them off in, I don't know, 5 games or so. We're talking about some drastic changes during the offseason. I mean, that still may be the case for the Miami Heat, but in terms of like their core or adding the complementary guys, I mean, like they need a whole new supporting cast, right?
Well,
And I think that's evident even tonight with the kind of effort they put forth in this game. Kyle Lowry played the
Something's
game
broken
of
there.
his season. You can commend him for that, but outside of that, I mean, a lot of these guys just didn't have it, and you wonder what this team is going to look like in a best-of-7 series against anyone. Never mind the Milwaukee Bucks if they get into this thing.
Who thinks this is possible?
I asked that earlier.
Bobby suggested that, but I don't know. I don't think that's the case, man. Their body language, I don't know. I don't think that was it.
You only duck a team when you actually have a matchup that you want to duck Boston to play Milwaukee.
They would have been playing like Indiana in the next game.
Yes, if there were like if the 9-10 game was between two teams that you knew damn well if you're Miami that you could easily beat them, then maybe you would think that. But Toronto could kick your ass, and you know this. Chicago could kick your ass, and you know this.
Playing with fire.
I don't think so either.
And what do you're avoiding Boston to go Milwaukee? Is that much easier? Probably not.
No, it's not. Right? It's not. It's not.
Yeah, I thought about it for a second, but probably not. They just stink, John. They stink. I've said it all year. Yeah. They're terrible. 26th in offense. Only the tanking teams were worse than them. Brick after brick after brick tonight. It's just like the Nets last year. They had this allure. They had this name. They had the players. But the reality was they stunk. We
all know the reasoning behind it, right? Like we all know. We all felt the same thing. It is nothing rational. It's not based on anything real. Like that, we actually thought any of us thought Miami was good. They're
just going to make you work.
It's the Spoelstra factor, the Jimmy Butler factor. I fear Jimmy Butler more than any other human in the playoffs. I'm serious. I do.
Gotta worry about that dude.
Freaks me out, man.
Yeah, I can't blame you after that shot.
I wanted nothing to do with Jimmy Butler. I'm sorry. He freaks me out. And I know that it's not even close, and Miami's been miserable all year. I wanted nothing to do with Jimmy Butler.
I wanted them, John, just because I think it would have woke the Celtics up round 1. This series has some real sleepwalking potential for Boston.
You know what, though, Bobby? But this is, to me, this is where we're going to find out how far the maturation of this team is coming.
Yeah,
because definitely. If they walk in there and they sleepwalk through game 1 and lose that game for any reason, they're not the team that we think they are.
Yeah, no question.
What I expect to see in game 1 is I expect to see the hammer. I expect them to win by 20. Right. I expect them to absolutely, they can just take a nice little, they can just tap away and get the win. No, bring out the damn sledgehammer and treat them like you would treat a gnat with a sledgehammer. You crush it. You leave them absolutely mentally and physically distraught, disabled, and dysfunctional. So that when you go to Atlanta with a 2-0 lead, you're not thinking about, well, maybe we can get one.
Discombobulated.
That's right, John. That's the other D word too. Damn it.
I mean, look, for people who are, the portion of Celtics fans being like, "Oh, this team is just bored." That's why they lost against the.
Not trying to hear that.
The Utah Jazz and those.
We got their best shot.
Houston Rockets. Well,
if you start getting,
you can't be bored in the playoffs, right? You can't.
If you start getting bored against any team,
there's no playing down to your competition in the playoffs like this.
Yeah. Josue, you're right.
Time to sleep.
Start getting bored, you're dead. Like,
you're done.
They start if you start flashing that in round 1, pack it up. Okay, I'm sorry, can't get bored in the playoffs. You see that against anybody right now, forget about it. Like I
the one
they need to go into the series like this. It's the Bucks or whoever the top. The team that make them come with their best, what is it? The best version of themselves, right? That's their approach they have to come with every single game in the postseason. They should know that.
You got to come at this the way you've come at these teams like the last week. I mean, think about it. They played multiple games where they should have lost based on who was available and who was not. But what did they do? They not only won, they absolutely beat the snot out of teams. That's what you have to do. You have to approach these games with the mindset that we're not just trying to win this game. We're trying to send a message to you. We're trying to send a message to our fans. And more importantly, we're trying to make sure the messaging that we have within our group, within our bunker, is clear. We are taking no prisoners. We are trying to kill anything and everyone in front of us. We don't want to just win. We want to absolutely decimate you in the process.
They will never take our freedom. And then you charge into battle. You know,
the good thing, Sherrod, is
painted face.
If they do approach the series that way, they will smoke this team. I mean, this team matches up terribly with them.
But seriously, I don't think the Celtics have to play great basketball to sweep these guys. I don't. I think they just need to play close, but not.
They can run up and down with these guys and win. Yeah. And we saw that in the season. I was going to say, you know, the 2 games between these 2 teams, the one in November was kind of a blow-up, but that more recent one in Atlanta, where Smart got ejected at the end, they were running back and forth all game. And even though the Hawks were scoring, they scored 124, they couldn't keep up. And ended up losing by almost double digits there. This is a tough one for Atlanta. I heard Quinn Snyder during one of those timeout interviews saying, "Oh, we're getting cross-matched in transition." And I'm just thinking of Joe. That's all he ever talks about is catching teams in transition cross matches. And the Celtics are going to do that all series. I do see Atlanta's pretty low in forced turnovers or turning the ball over themselves. So I do wonder how many opportunities the Celtics will get to go out and run against this team.
Well, Boston's a better defensive team than Miami at this point. And so I think that's a lot of that. Miami, they're not aggressive. And you look at the guys that they play, is there anyone that you'd even contemplate putting on an all defensive team or second or third or fifth or eighth all NBA defensive team if there was one? No. So I think the turnovers, I think the Celtics will force more turnovers. But to your point, Bobby, it's not going to be turnstile city where they're going to get out and have like 15, 18, 20 turnovers and get like 20, 25 points that way. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I find it because Horford, I thought Al Horford said something very interesting at practice today, and this is something that's been in my head all year, John, is this defense. The number 2, the Celtics, they got all the stats you look at across the board. The analytics look great, but we still look at it and compare it to last year and go, the forcefulness isn't there. The disruptiveness isn't there. The aggression on that end isn't there. And I'm just looking at this series and saying, does it appear? Do you finally see it? Or is it just going to be up and down, up and down, up and down?
Well, it's interesting, Bobby, and for everybody, it's last year you couldn't be playing better than the Celtics were playing. You obviously had the Rob hiccup, which changed the dynamic a little bit, but like they were killing people, and it was hard to not feel great entering the playoffs with just what you were seeing from that team. I'm still looking at taking a step back and looking at the big picture of this team. Yes, there were inconsistencies. You literally had the first 26 games, then that middle 40, which was like, I don't know what's going on here. But overall, it's hard to not look at the collection of players on this team and seeing them playing when they play at their highest level and not think it's a better overall team than the one that went into the playoffs and went to the finals last year. It just looks like an all-around better team. It doesn't have holes, really. It's only a matter of whether or not they get in their own way a lot of the times, falling into bad habits, not putting in the effort on defense, having it affect, having bad
losing
offense,
a 28-point
defensive
lead.
effort, things like that. Like when their inner demons, when those come out, that's a problem. But overall, I really do feel like their A game is really, really, really hard to stop. It's just, can they bring it on a regular basis? But it's like, you don't fear any matchup with anyone, honestly. Like Celtics enter any of the matchups, and the East is really good. Are you going to be like, oh, geez, what are they going to? No, you're like, if they play well, they win. They should win. And that's just my general feeling on this team. Sometimes you don't know. You don't know if they're going to show.
Well, I think the way they're built now is in a way where if you beat them, they're going to have, and they being the Celtics, are going to be a factor in their own demise. Whereas last year, I thought that the Celtics would play really well some nights, and it still may not be enough to win because their offense was kind of up and down and everywhere, and then some. But the defense was solid. This year, they've got top shelf scoring ability, top shelf defense when they want to bring it. And so, for the way I look at it, they lose more likely because of something they didn't do versus what another team does.
Exactly.
And that's the difference between this team and last year's team. This team, I think, is built in a way that, again, their own demise is going to have to come just in that form. It's going to have to be them. It's not going to be because they're playing a team that's just so much better than them.
Can't keep up with those guys, right? It's not going to happen.
Right.
Everyone, that comment was interesting. I just put up on the screen a second ago. It's like, you added Brogdon to the mix and that was valuable. But, like, you didn't just add that. You added guys you had last year who weren't that good last year. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. You added a version of Derek White that did not exist last year. This Derek White on last year's team playing at the same exact level might have won them a title. I'm not pinning the loss on Derek White, but I'm saying is this guy has been their third best player all. It's a different person, and you added Brogdon, and you added Hauser, who didn't exist before. And
Hauser's a big one this series. He killed this team.
Hauser's an interesting one. What you might have lost. You've lost about 10 to 15% of Marcus and maybe 50% of Grant. And we'll figure out what's going to go on with him.
The Hauser stats, John? They're fun in this matchup this year.
Atlanta's a good team for Hauser.
I didn't know we were going to go there this early, but that one
sat right in the
back of my head.
Yeah.
Sam Hauser this year versus the Atlanta Hawks. 18 for 27.
But he had the last game.
I know, but he went into
that kind of skews the numbers a bit.
He went into it with big stats too, though.
Yeah.
17 for 25 from 3. 68%.
68%. Yeah.
13 boards, 6 assists, 17 points a game. You think they're going to play him in this series?
Unleash Hauser.
Yeah.
We
just call it open house.
Open Hauser. Yes, I like it. Real quick, nobody's done this, right?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Let's pay some bills real quick. We will tell you guys. And you want to get in on this action, right? Playoffs. Celtics still amazingly not. I am surprised Milwaukee maintained their status as the betting favorites because I would think Boston is by far the more fashionable pick. And honestly, I think most people's pick, regardless of the fact that the Bucks are the top team, but the Bucks are still slight favorites. So if you're still looking for a little bit of edge there on those Celtics and you want to ride that, it's still tough odds, but they're still behind Milwaukee here. In terms of overall, we are also going to talk a little bit about baseball because it did start up and we do want to clue you guys in on it. Grand slams, no hitters, double plays. If you're the Red Sox, strikeouts and giving up home runs is back in the mix. No better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the official partner of Major League Baseball. New customers en masse, $200 bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. If you sign up, FanDuel.com/Boston. Bet on all your favorite sports, money line, point spreads, player props, what have you. The app is safe, it's secure, it's really easy to use. So again, $200 bonus bets, win or lose, FanDuel.com/Boston. Make every moment more with FanDuel, our exclusive wagering partner here at CLNS Media and the official partner of Major League Baseball. I guess that kind of makes us partners with Major League Baseball, right?
Cousins.
Yes.
Technically.
We're
right?
cousins.
We're cousins.
Hey, 206, John, in a baseball game. I thought I'd never see it.
Yeah, pretty nice. Real quick, we do need to tell you as well that you do need to be 21 or over in order to participate. Present in Massachusetts as well. A $10 initial deposit required. First online bet must be a real money wager. Bonuses issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope is here. Go to gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. What haven't you guys talked about yet?
I mean, we kind of did a preview, but we pretty much just recapped the game between the Hawks and Hawks and Heat.
We haven't talked about, top 5 Tatum really the last couple of weeks. We haven't talked about Jaylen Brown and what,
all NBA votes flowing in.
Did you talk about this?
What?
I wanted to get to Grant at one point tonight.
I like that.
This was one of the best, most self-aware tweets ever. Really was.
I'm still rocking with you, Grant. I don't care what none of them say. Grant, I'm still rocking with Grant. I'm not giving up my Grant stock just yet.
I know.
You know what? That's
Grant
fine, but then turn off your social media for the playoffs, Grant. Just dial in. I like it. I like the post though. I don't mind it. But
all my Grant Williams stock.
That's it.
Every single share.
Keep your head out your phone, Grant. Keep your head in the playbook. Let's see you bounce back here.
I'm worried about Grant in this series.
Some odds here for you FanDuel participants. Game 1 odds -8. Series odds right there. Check it out. Anyway,
-8.
but -8. Hammer it.
So I'm looking, John. That last game they played, the last real game between Boston and Atlanta. Grant was a DNP. I think that was around that time.
Yeah.
What date we talking about here? March 11th. That was that Grant stretch that got weird. And how often have we heard Joe say matchups? That night, Grant wasn't in the cards for the matchup against Atlanta. So how much do we actually see him in this series against Atlanta? I'm very intrigued.
I thought you were leaving.
Yeah, I was like, damn, Bobby, that was like that, right? Moment. Where the hell are you going?
He's gonna go. He's gonna go find Jimmy Toscano. Did you guys get in on Jimmy at all?
He responded and he said something in the group chat. No,
he's on another show right now.
Oh, that's right. No, they rescheduled him.
Unbelievable.
They rescheduled him. It wasn't. He didn't plan it like that.
Grant's a wild card. Like, here's the thing. The best part about like a first round series that you're supposed to win is you got a little bit more time to figure stuff out. Like there is a little margin for error against a weaker opponent. You don't want to come out soft, but I still think there's hope, right? You guys still are holding out hope that the version of Grant who was a contributor, certainly against Milwaukee in the second round last year, will rear his head again. I'm still not so sure. I'm reducing my expectations to, can you just make the most out of whatever minutes you get, and not try to do too much and just try to do what you do, play decent defense, just hold your ground. And then if the shots are there, take your shots and hope they go down. But that's it. That's all I'm looking for Grant. Don't do too much. Don't talk too much. Hope. Don't do anything. Just chill.
I mean, look, I think there's still hope in the sense that this is a guy who shot, above 40% or at least around that last season. But I think at the same time, though, what's going against that hope is the fact that the Celtics team has figured out how to be productive, how to win without Grant. Like you talk about the DNPs, Bobby, there's been plenty of games where he's played, but did he have a whole lot to do with the win? I mean, not necessarily, at least not on a consistent level. So I think that's the part that goes against that likelihood that he'll bounce back and be consistent for the span of a best of 7 series. Does he come up big in a game or two throughout a series? I think that's where your hope, you hope that happens to sort of unlock him into being somewhat consistent option off the bench. But again, this team has been successful without him being a huge chunk of it, and it wouldn't shock me if that's the case to start off the playoffs. I mean, if anything, this is that series for Grant to shake up, wake up and find that consistency and hope that it carries throughout the postseason. But it might take a few games.
Well, the thing that we can't lose sight of is I'll just give you, it's a one word: Blake. The Celtics have someone who can fill that void for an 8 to 10 minute window. I know Bobby likes to see a little bit more Blake than I do, but 8 to 10 minutes of Blake is been pretty damn good for the Celtics. And so,
especially in this series.
So if let's say if you're Joe Mazzulla and you're kind of tapering the rotation a little bit, where you're basically playing 7 guys plus Sam Hauser 8, and then maybe a rotating 9th guy, and that's like Blake for 8 to 10 minutes a game.
That's what they did in the last game against them, Sherrod.
That's what they've been doing, Sherrod.
That's going to make it difficult for Grant to be a factor in this series, which I don't think Grant's going to be much of a factor in this Hawks series. I do think he'll be more valuable in this next round.
This is
I'm
the
less
bench.
concerned about. I agree with you there, real quick, Sherrod. I think Blake because he's Blake and because he's a veteran, is trustworthy in playoffs. He's actually a safe play.
He keeps making good decisions, John.
He makes the right decision, and that's what you need. People that are kind of, in the role that he's put in. You just need him to do what's expected of him, and that not too much. And I know you can count on him to do that. And Grant has been wildly inconsistent and has done some really boneheaded stuff and just been out of sorts. My question is really whether or not he has the guts to give Hauser legit minutes, in the series, because
I think
the safe thing is to split those eighth man minutes between those two guys and just call it a day. But are you going to let Hauser ride for 16, 18, 20 and just live with whatever happens there? I don't
think you'll let him ride that many, but I think he will play. And some of those minutes, I think we'll see Derek White get some of those minutes that normally would go to Hauser.
Brogdon should ramp up.
Brogdon will get his minutes ramped up as well. Exactly. So I do think that Sam is going to play because the numbers tell you that you need to play him. And the results tell you that he should play. How much? That I think that's a good legit question, John.
It is, because that's the fear factor. Is you watch them, and here's the thing: is during the regular season, you can have the benefit of okay, go ahead, attack Hauser at your own peril. Get yourself out of your offense, this and that, and you can live with it, even if it does work once or twice. But in the playoffs, if they start to ISO him and get a couple of buckets, is Joe going to get nervous and be like, I got to get him out of there. Because I don't know. You got to.
We just haven't seen that happen this year often.
It hasn't, but if it does in the playoffs, are you going to get cold feet fast? I don't know if I can risk this, because it's playing Hauser legit minutes when you know that, defense matters a lot in the playoffs, and watch him get eaten up on a possession or two, which again didn't happen in the regular season. But if it happens even in a small sample size in the playoffs, I'm wondering if Joe just goes, nope, go sit over there. I'm going to play the safer versions and the other guys. And then I think that kind of takes a weapon away from you. You got to kind of let the guy, we said this about Hauser throughout, you got to live with the fact that he's Sam Hauser. If you want the good stuff, sometimes you're going to have to live with the night where he's 1 for 7 from 3 and gets eaten up a little bit on the defensive end, because the next one, he's going to hit 5 of 8, but you can't yo-yo him or not play him or play him 4 minutes. The first 2 shots don't go down and you never play him the rest of the game. You're either committing to utilizing Hauser as part of a rotation or you're not. And I'm not sure what Joe's going to do there.
Yeah, I think he rides the hot hand just because of what he's been doing at the end of the season, and because again, what this team has been able to come up with without having to play guys like Grant or go double big or turn to guys like Brogdon and White. I mean, look, those guys will certainly play a lot, especially Brogdon. I'm sure he'll be ramped up to 30 minutes, more than what we've seen throughout the season, especially if it's a close game. But I just think someone like Hauser and his offense, especially when you look at the numbers, his individual numbers against the Atlanta Hawks, you got to ride that hot hand. You got to see if you can cement him into that role, for good for the entire the stretch of this postseason. But this is that test. This is that one series where you can explore that.
Yeah, and so again, these comments that people are putting in here, we know the stats and we know he leads in defensive rating, and there's a reason behind that. It's teams, and we've talked about this philosophically. Teams get themselves out of rhythm sometimes when they're hunting matchups because they stop playing their game and they're obsessed with the matchup. I think the Celtics, when they do that, don't do really well either. They take themselves out of their game. They ISO.
They've had a few bad games with that, yeah.
I don't like when they do it at all. So teams have varied success with that. Like I said, in the playoffs, if you just see it working a couple of times, and you guys mentioned Trae Young earlier, you're right. Miami didn't seemingly do it enough. It looked like they started the third quarter a little bit doing that, or maybe late second, early third. I forget when it was, but you're right. They didn't enough, but it is a mixed bag strategy because it really does kind of take you out of what you're doing.
But you got to go there at least 3 or 4 times to give it a chance to see if it works. And if it doesn't work after 3 or 4 possessions, ditch it.
But you're going to try.
You got to try.
They're going to see Hauser and they're going to attack.
To what end, I wonder.
Works, I wonder what happens. That's where I'm getting at. Yeah.
Right.
And the reason I bring this up is because I think they'll do it. I don't actually like the idea of doing it, though, because I do think you'll need Grant against Philadelphia. I do think you'll need Grant against the Bucks. This is why I didn't like them benching him in the first place. You don't need to make a move like this to beat the Hawks. You can do it without them. It's going to be tempting. I think they'll start with Grant, John, But Grant might struggle in this series. I mean, he looked terrible against this team, and I know it was the
He's
backup,
looked
so that's
terrible.
who
This
he's
is a
going to be
bad
playing
matchup.
against.
It's not a
This
great
team
matchup.
is
It's a bad
for
matchup.
them.
Big bodies at the 4 and the 5.
And they're long.
Yeah.
Yeah, they protect the
mean-
rim well. They'll get out to the perimeter on three-point shooters.
When he's on the floor, he's matched up with either Clint Capella, who's long and just a rebounding machine, John Collins.
Look at Jalen Johnson tonight.
Jalen Johnson is another
Man.
one who is a really, I think, a player that we don't talk nearly enough about when you talk about the Hawks because he hasn't played enough. But he's another guy that can cause some problems, and we're not even talking about young fella Okongwu from USC.
I love him.
He's just active, and he's long, and he's fit. He's got a certain girth about him. And
you see he blocked 3 shots on 1 possession tonight, I think.
And you start going down the pecking order of the guys that Grant's going to be matched up with. Who do you feel good about him matching up with? None of them.
No, there's no one.
So that's why, to me, like I said, I don't think Grant is going to be much of a factor in this series. But I do think if they get to the second round and go for there, his role will take on greater significance because he's a better matchup in those series.
I'm torn on Grant, Josue.
What are you torn about, Bobby?
I think you need him.
This is a bad series for him, Bobby. You know this.
I think you need him, though. Do you lose him if you sit him for this whole series? No, I think you need him later.
Atlanta. Bobby, if you're leaning on Grant Williams to deliver for you against Atlanta Hawks.
No, I'm talking later, Sherrod. Philly, Milwaukee, and the finals.
Yes.
Yeah, but Bobby, you don't think this team hasn't convinced you that they can beat a team like that without Grant, or at least?
No, I know they can, and they might be better without him in this series. But do you lose him by sitting him or playing him minimal minutes?
You know what, Bobby? It goes back to what I said earlier about maturation. If
really
Grant's
up to
not
him
mature
at this
enough to
point,
handle understanding his role in this series is not going to be his role throughout the playoffs, then Grant isn't the player that we thought, because he should be savvy enough to understand that, well, I don't match up well with any of those guys, but against Milwaukee, yeah, I should get out there and play. Against Philly, yeah, I should get out there and play. Atlanta, even though they're not as good as those other teams, their strength as a team plays to what I'm not strong at. And so it makes sense. Grant's a smart dude. I honestly believe, Bobby, he's going to be smart enough and understanding enough that he will see why he may not play that much against Atlanta. I think so. Yeah, I do. I really do. And if he's like chirping about it or it's a problem, this is telling us more about Grant than we thought. And this is something that you need to know. If you're the Celtics, you want to find this out right now before you latch onto this guy long term. And I think that's part of why I don't think Grant is going to be bitching and moaning if he doesn't play against Atlanta.
I don't know that
and I hate to say it too, Charles.
Not bitch and moan. I don't know he knows how.
I mentioned this on Sunday. Man.
If he gets on the floor, he's going to bitch and moan to the refs. That's a given. We know that.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about, because what he did on Sunday, that pouting when he stood on the ground.
Josue hated his game on Sunday.
You're one of the few players out there
we were there.
You played in the finals last year. Act like it. Lead the charge. Okay, sure, the main guys aren't there, like you're used to, but it's Derek White's out there. You guys should be able to lead that group. I just feel like
Grant feelings at that moment.
He showed poor leadership, man. You show poor leadership.
Grant flew too close to the sun last year. Okay, he did. He had that big game against Milwaukee. Gets to the finals. Goes to Draymond's wedding. Thinks he's in the club. Kind of got a little bit ahead of himself. Like just flew too close to the sun, and he really kind of came crashing down. But can he reinvent himself? Can he go back to the?
I think they need him, John.
I still think Draymond put him in his place, man. It all started then, if you ask me.
Here's my Josue.
But Draymond was like, "What are you, Tatum's +1?"
Josue, you just said it.
I swear I didn't.
Slander.
I'm who you want to be. Okay, I'm your goal. Like, come on.
Josue, you said
Mr.
it.
Miyagi, is that what you said?
Yeah, right.
You said something interesting, Josue.
Wax on, wax off.
For real.
You said, do you find something in this series with Hauser that could last the length of the postseason? That'd be great. I don't know if it happens, though. I think this matchup's great for him. Philadelphia, I don't know. Milwaukee especially. I don't know about Hauser in those matchups.
Wouldn't surprise me that the minutes that Grant and Sam played flip-flopped. from one series to the next. Would not shock me because, again, this is what championship teams can do. You have the ability to have players who have certain roles against certain teams and maybe less significant roles against others. But the issue is, do you have talent that can address the needs that you have against a particular opponent? Against Atlanta, I think you do need to have guys out there who can knock down shots more so than you need the things that Grant Williams brings to the table. And against Philadelphia and Milwaukee, you want Sam out there for a little bit, but I think Grant's role and presence will be greater because of what he brings from a defensive versatility standpoint against some of the bigs on those respective teams. And at the end of the day, players have to not only talk about it, but they have to be about the team. They can't just talk about it's all about winning. That's all I care about. When in fact, deep down inside, it's like, I care about that as long as I'm playing.
Right.
Because if that's what they're really feeling, then we got problems. We have big problems. But I think both Sam and Grant are the type of players that understand that they're not gonna get burned every night. And they shouldn't get burned every night because they're not built as players to be universally impactful regardless of the opponent they play. Derek White, it doesn't matter who you play, Derek White's going to help you. Malcolm Brogdon, he's going to help you. You start going along your top 6, top 7 players, they have that universal impact that they can bring to the game. But Grant, Sam, Blake, Muscala, you've got basically everyone from 8 on down has a very specific role where they can be.
I hope you're right, Sherrod.
But it changes from one series to
but
the
next. They got to perform their roles. Grant has not been performing,
and that's the frustrating
Hauser
part,
has
John.
been. Blake has been, and
Right.
that's the problem. Is he's not doing what you need Grant to do.
Exactly.
This is
Even
Grant's
in a reduced role. And look, we said this last year, and I this wasn't Grant slander. I think they needed Grant and got good things from Grant last year. But I said in the offseason, when you go into free agency, you're looking to find people who are going to reduce Grant and Pritchard's minutes because those guys shouldn't be your 7-8. They should be your 9-10. Potentially. And that
You
would have
did say
maybe happened if Gallinari didn't get hurt because Gallinari and Brogdon came in to do exactly that. And that's it. You cannot have rotations much deeper than 9 in the NBA with people who need minutes because they're going to
John, I'm not sure he's going to play in this series.
They're going to start chirping at each other. So Grant's barely hanging on to that. He entered the season not realizing he's barely hanging on to that last bottom of the rotation spot. And not a guy. And he was lucky in the early going because Rob wasn't playing and he got some minutes. But he's the back end of the rotation sort of guy. He's got to just play his role. What's up,
and the bottom line, John, with him is that he has not maximized the opportunity that he was given. You go back and you look at a guy like Isaiah Thomas, who when Danny Ainge brought him here, he was supposed to be this little spark plug off the bench. Marcus Smart gets hurt. Isaiah goes into our starting lineup. He makes the most of that opportunity. And Grant just didn't do that this year. There's no one to blame but Grant. You can't blame Joe. You can't blame illness or injury. It's on you because you got minutes to play. You did not do the things consistently to keep those minutes. And combine that with the fact that Blake is doing what savvy veterans do. You give me a few minutes, I'm going to show you why I'm going into the Hall of Fame. I may not be that guy anymore, but I'm going to show you the things that I can do to help this team win because I'm smart enough to know that I know
can't
what
remember
I
a
can
bad
do.
decision by him all year.
What's that?
Can't remember a bad decision by Blake all year.
No, everything he does is what you would expect someone who has been in the game for a long time, who understands how to play, and more important, understands how to play the role that he's being asked to play. Blake doesn't do anything that is out of his skill set. Blake's not pulling up from the logo. Blake's not trying to, just catch lobs in transition because he doesn't do that stuff. That's not who he is. He's a grimy player. He gets to loose balls. He can rebound. He draws charges. He's doing everything within his wheelhouse of talents at this point. And that's why if you're Joe Mazzulla and you've got an 8 to 10 minute window that you need to fill with a big, you're probably going to lean on him because you know exactly what you're getting. And what you're getting is good. It's good.
Yeah. Grant sees minutes. I think the combo that you saw down the stretch a little bit for everybody. I think you're going to see that again. I don't know that Grant goes down to 0, Bobby, but you know, I don't know that he's
I
he's
worry
in there.
about it.
He might be one of the last guys coming off the bench there, and he might, you know, I could see him getting no first half minutes and like say 5-6 in the second and see what happens. You know, like it's
We've
hard
seen
to
him sit the entire first quarter quite a bit.
quite a bit. He's come in mid second on some or like early mid second with that like last wave. You know,
right? And we haven't even talked about Mike Muscala, who the last week or so has done some really good things too, and that only adds to the uncertainty for Grant, because now you got another guy.
Damn, it's like, yo, bury Grant. Bury that dude in the bench.
Listen, I ain't selling my Grant stock. I'm not. But I got to be honest and keep it real with y'all. There are other guys that are going to make it hard for him to get on the floor.
These guys, Sherrod, though, I don't trust them against Philly, which is what worries me about sitting Grant for an entire series. I hope he can withstand it. I hope you're right that he'll accept it, Sherrod, and just roll forward. But the inconsistent minutes didn't play well in the second half for him. He ended up becoming inconsistent. I'm looking at his game log 10 the year. It's not a lot to love. Those last 3 games were really bad. 1 for 9 against Toronto between the 2 games. He played okay in that Philly win, the Philly loss, the shorthanded one. Had 2 great games against Utah where he scored 36 combined with the 7 threes in that first game. But otherwise, it's single-digit scoring, knocking a lot of shots off, which Missoula can't love. And he had that 8-minute to start this whole stretch against Houston. Of course, did not play against Atlanta way back on March 11th. So it's something I'm watching going into this series. It's one of my 5 concerns going into the postseason is them not resolving that situation with him and getting him rolling again. I think they need him. I don't know how you feel about that, John. Can they do it without him? Can they win a championship without Grant getting back to the level he did?
You're asking John this?
I mean, look, man. It's
John's going to talk about the myth of Grant Williams.
No, I mean, I've been pretty consistent on Grant. I admittedly went a little overboard in the early going. We're saying he doesn't have even a job in this league, but but last year, even when he was performing well, I really was saying very consistently, he's your 7-8 now. I think he'd be better as your 8-9, you know, sort of guy. That's who I think he is. I think he's a very deep rotation guy on a good team, and maybe a guy who's your 6th, 7th man on not as good a team. That's who he is. He's not integral, but we've seen him do things that have tremendous value. Knocking down threes at a 40% clip is valuable, man. You know, like that's a big deal. What made Grant? Why was Grant a revelation last year? He started hitting those shots. That was a big deal on a team that really lacked shooting. They needed that. And a switchable defender, a versatile defender who could muscle up against some of the bigger, tougher guys. Those 2 things have value. But if he's not doing either at a consistent level,
and there are other guys can't do
out
those
of position,
things,
fouling, you know, and again, he's not helping himself. Like you gotta play to your strengths a little bit, and everything that you do in life should be, you know, designed to achieve your desired outcome. And Grant, pouting, talking, complaining, and this and that, is hurting himself because he's not getting the benefit of the doubt on calls, and he plays a physical brand of defense against guys who bang a little bit, and he neutralizes himself by doing that. So
Embiid torched him in that.
He just didn't do any favors to himself this year because there is value in what he does. I just don't know how he recaptures that at this point.
I don't know.
I think he's got to get back to doing the little things that got him more minutes as time went on, and that's getting the loose balls, forcing turnovers, contesting shots, the things that don't always show up in the stat sheet. That's what Grant has to do more. That's what Blake's doing. If I'm Grant Williams,
remember he used to take charges? You take charges all the time.
I'm watching what Blake does and thinking to myself, damn, I used to do that. Why am I not doing that anymore? Or why am I not doing it as much as I used to? And to me, that's how you get back into the good graces of Joe Mazzulla and make an impact and get your
defense, Sherrod. He's got to defend. I don't think he was the defender he was last year, this season. That Embiid game is as much of an example as anything because he could stand his ground against those guys last year, and he did. It's a big reason they went as far as they did.
Yeah, and be savvy about it. I mean, when was the last time you seen a Celtics big pull the chair out on a guy defensively who they know damn well is trying to bully them? I'm pulling the chair out at least twice on Joel Embiid because I know at least once he's probably going to score, and another time he's going to fall on his ass and turn the ball over.
But the foul will still go on Grant.
Yeah, if it doesn't go on that play, he'll sneeze and it'll be like.
Ime
Wow.
Udoka said it all the time last year. We need him to play a narrow role, and when he gets outside of that, and it seemed half in jest, but I do think he really stressed that and really got Grant to do it.
Damn.
Stand over there and shoot, and then play defense. That's it.
This dribble thing, the up fakes into attacking closeouts, killed him this year. Shot horribly on those. Did you see that play against Atlanta, John, where he just kind of tossed it up and almost caught it himself without
Yeah,
hitting
because
anything?
everyone was tweeting it at me. You know, like, get him out of here. This encapsulates his whole season. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Well, it's one thing to work with
that sequence was so weird. He was like, threw it with his left. Like,
yeah, and then Bobby, do you remember? This is when you turned to me. You go, "What's Grant doing?" Literally, you said that.
Says
it is hard.
466 Celtics fans. What is Grant doing?
Yeah, we can't even give him
that sat and he pouted. Right? Remember, Sherrod? That's the same play. You didn't get the call you wanted.
We can't even give him the Twist Award without the fans yelling at us. Tell him to shoot better.
All I know is Bobby looked sharp in that Twist Award photo. That's all I have to say.
Hey,
he did deserve that. He did deserve that award.
You deserved it, Bobby. Okay. All right, guys, we've been going for a bit. I know I jumped on late. We are going to do a playoff preview where we will talk about some of Bobby's concerns, some of my concerns. We'll do some playoff predictions and some other things.
By the way, you see Jalen today? No rap. Free hand.
I don't believe it. Stock photo.
He beat the vase.
Photoshop.
Stock photo.
You think they photo AI hand?
Yes.
We got to look out for that now.
Let's see it in person. It's going to be like I said. It's going to look like Jason Pierre-Paul when he takes that wrap off. You know, like.
Oh, God, don't do that to him. Oh gosh.
Just on a roll today.
I want healthy Jalen. That's what I want.
It was like 3 shards of the vase I grabbed. You know, I just got.
Yeah. Okay.
Mini.
Whatever.
Mini
like
scratch.
we said, doesn't matter. None of it matters if he's fine, if he's playing. But you know, he shows up and he's like,
he will be back Thursday apparently.
You know. Okay. We'll see. But yeah, we'll get into some of that stuff. We're going to try to get together on Thursday and do that little playoff preview. Obviously, game 1 is Saturday. All of these clowns will be there. And I know Sherrod loves him some Atlanta, so he's going to be heading down. We'll have some other people down there as well. So we'll be fully covered, not just round 1, but throughout the playoffs with a ton of in-person coverage, post-game shows. And guys, come on, man up. Like, let's go. You guys have been sleepwalking through the back half of the season. It's the playoffs. Let's get it going again. Let's get
Coach
some
Zannis
let's
with
get
the
some
motivational speech.
Let's get some noise. Wake up your buddies. Let's get on this show. Let's get going.
Let's give out some shirts too, John. You know, let's do some kind of contest or something. Let's hook our fans up. Get them pumped up. Get them all hooked up with some gear for the playoffs.
What the hell? Wake up, people. Let's go. So yeah, we'll be doing that. Could be a sleepy
series.
Damn it, Bobby.
Celtics.
No,
Hawks,
not for me.
Trying to get us pumped up, and Bobby's it's going to be a sleepy series.
Bobby wants to go to Miami.
I am always pumped for any matchup, any kind of game. You know, you'll see me pump for Houston. You'll see me pump for San Antonio.
Plus,
so I'm ready to go.
I will not be pumped for Houston or San Antonio. I'm just going to tell you right now.
I'm concerned about the team sleepwalking here, and I'm concerned about the chat sleepwalking.
I've never been to San Antonio.
Wake up, guys. All right, you want me to get you guys fired up? This series is advanced scouting for when Jalen doesn't get all NBA, figuring out how we're going to do this Atlanta trade in the offseason, okay? So you're going to get a good look at everyone.
There you go.
Hawks, right?
They'll get them going.
You're going to get a good look at everybody here. And then
Jonathan Murray and a bunch of picks. John Collins.
Collins 2 firsts for Jalen.
I want the Danny Ainge special.
Yeah.
I need 3
or 4. They don't. No,
plus Collins.
Stop it.
Plus Murray.
4 first rounders.
Hey, let me interrupt this.
Danny Ainge
Murray
special.
Collins 2 firsts. Jalen and Smart.
The chat just reminded me. I didn't mention Cornette yet tonight, but he did have a 15-point
Bobby,
game
and you
against
just did
Atlanta.
Who wrote that? Who the fuck?
15-point game against Atlanta earlier this year. In
Why
fact,
did
it
they
was
put
the
that in
last
the chat?
matchup. 7 for 7. I think he was throwing down reverse dunks in that game, remember?
Who could forget? Is that when you went Stromile? He might have went
I
Stromile.
think it was Stromile in that one, yeah.
You see his new celebration?
That's probably one of my
Did he
favorite
do
things
the
I've seen
moose
him
horns
do.
for Muscala or something? Did he do something, moose antlers or something?
He had a new one where he was
Something like that. Yeah.
he had like a bag or something. He said he looked in it and it was him. I didn't really get it, but he's had some good ones this year.
I like that he showed some. He paid homage to Stromile though. That's what's up.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who Stromile was. You had to,
Oh my
you had to let
gosh.
me know, Josue.
Yeah.
Like number 3 pick.
Stromile.
Was a freak athletically. Just never, he never, I mean, he had a bunch of injuries. He just never lived up to the
John,
draft.
by the way, your absence on Sunday, I almost got to try another round of Cornet desserts, but I was on the show here. And
Sorry,
missed
buddy.
it.
LSU, right? Stromile. Stromile was real. I mean, you know, like there was some hype around him. Those look good.
Bobby was like, "What's a Stromile?"
It's Swift. You know, it's Swift.
So I'm sorry about that. The lemon squares may come back, right? What's
This time
the deal,
it was
Bobby? I don't know how you haven't done this story.
What was it?
Yet.
Oreo brownies or something?
Yeah, it was Oreos with white chocolate.
How
colored.
have you not done this story?
Yeah.
Do the story.
It's coming.
The
Don't
feature.
worry.
The Cornet the Baker.
We should get like a podcast going. Who's our old sponsor there?
Don't
Hello
say the
Fresh?
name, because if they're no sponsor, that means they're not a sponsor now. We're not giving a
Well,
shout
we're about
out.
to get them back. We're gonna do a
Still
bake
current.
off.
Tell them shut up, John. There you go.
Any sponsors that want to sponsor a bake off, me versus Cornet. Let's get it going.
I'll do it. I'll throw some pies right friggin' down there on
some Zannis pies.
Yeah. It'll be round 1, the pies versus lemon squares. Okay, we'll throw it down. Yeah. All right, so guys, thank you. We hit the hour mark. I think we're good. Go see. You guys go Google Jimmy Toscano. See where you find him tomorrow. Okay. I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed, but it is what it is. No, it's not.
If I find it, I'm gonna nitpick the interview. See how he did.
It's within the family. He's doing. He had previously promised to do the Celtics Lab podcast. Celtics Lab. You can also see at here on CLNS Media. So check that out. You get Jimmy Toscano's takes over there. So you got the Garden Report. You got what we had to say, Jimmy. You're gonna go have to watch another podcast for it.
I bet you he's way different. I wonder what he's like. I bet you he's different with other people.
Who, Jimmy? I bet he's like so polite and professional.
Yeah, he must be like on his best behavior.
He's not flipping bottle caps or wearing hard hats or rocking back and
Spinning
forth.
around in circles.
Swiping. We can clearly tell he's on a nap.
That's an excellent question. Let me tell you what I think.
I'll always ask him a question, John, and he'll never be ready.
But hosting Jimmy is different though. He's like the moderator, Jimmy. He's just like, okay, well, you have the floor now. Like he doesn't argue. He doesn't get mad. He's just very like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he sets the table nicely.
All right, I get mad. Sorry, it happens. And sometimes I get angry. So yeah. All right. We will see you guys again on Thursday. We'll see how many of the group makes it. Jimmy, I think we'll be back. Playoff preview coming Thursday. Game 1 Saturday. Guys, thank you for starting the show. Sorry to everyone for being late, but I'm glad we got to do this. Celtics playing the Hawks. Probably best case scenario matchup, but we'll see how it goes. We will see you guys on Thursday and then obviously throughout the playoffs.